Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys for joining me here. Yesterday, the Steelers had their joint practice versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Acrisure Stadium. It was a closed practice, so by the time I recorded my video yesterday, we didn't have a whole lot of information on it. So I just wanted to get in front of a camera today on my day off here at home to kind of give some of my takeaways from it, some of the information that we've gotten from that practice yesterday, and what I think it means for the Steelers moving forward, and kind of just give my take on what we heard from that joint practice yesterday. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Tomorrow night, me, Ponzi, Coop, the whole gang are going to be live for our live watch party. That's going to start at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, Steelers play the Buccaneers in that preseason game at Acrisure Stadium tomorrow night. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button. Tomorrow I'll have a video out breaking down some of the key storylines to watch out for. So watch out for that video coming out tomorrow. But I just wanted to get in front of a camera today, guys, and just kind of give my thoughts on some of the things that we have heard from the Steelers practice yesterday versus the Buccaneers. And the people that were in attendance yesterday at Acrisure Stadium say that the Buccaneers won the practice. I think it was Brandon Echols after practice said that the defense came out a little bit flat compared to what they are used to at Steelers practice. And, you got to tip your cap to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are a good football team with a lot of cohesion, and they got a good head coach in Todd Bowles who knows what he's doing. Baker Mayfield has really turned into like a good starting quarterback the last several seasons. They've made the playoffs for multiple years in a row. Like that's not a joke of a football team that came in yesterday. I just want to say, there's a lot of people that are a little bit worried that the Steelers, didn't go out there and dominate yesterday, or that they didn't, quote unquote, win the practice or whatever. But I actually think it's okay that the Steelers, didn't win the practice. It did sound like they held their own. We're going to be going over some of the positives that were taken away from yesterday's practice throughout the course of this video. But the general sense was the Buccaneers had the edge over the Steelers yesterday. And I really think that that's okay, guys, because like I said, that Tampa Bay team's a good team, probably a top 10 roster overall in the National Football League. They are the clear favorites in the NFC South this year, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. Mike Evans is an awesome receiver. Chris Godwin is an awesome receiver. It sounds like Emeka Egbuka, the receiver out of Ohio State, is going to be a stud as well. Bucky Irving's an awesome running back. They got a good O-line. And then that defense, they're tough. They run a lot of very interesting pressure looks, and they're really good in man coverage. And Todd Bowles is a good defensive coach, so that team is going to be dangerous this year, man. And they also have a lot of cohesion, so they have a lot of guys that have played together, very similar scheme that they've played over the last several years, even though they got a new offensive play caller. But generally speaking, man, like that team, knows each other. They have established chemistry with each other. They're more further along in the process than the Pittsburgh Steelers are, because you look at the Steelers roster and there's a lot of stuff that's new, right? You got a new quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. He's throwing to receivers that he's never thrown to before. It's still a young offensive line that's still gelling together. You got young running backs like Caleb Johnson out there still trying to get their feet wet. A defense with multiple new pieces, especially in the secondary. So, it honestly doesn't surprise me all that much that the Buccaneers were the cleaner team, that they, quote unquote, won the practice yesterday. But there's still some positive takeaways to come from yesterday's practice that we'll get into here. When it comes to 7 shots, there was 2 different sets of 7 shots: Steelers offense versus Buccaneers defense, and then Buccaneers offense versus Steelers defense. The Steelers offense won 7 shots yesterday, 6-1. So that's really promising there that, this offense that has really held their own against this really good Steelers defense throughout camp. They tied at St. Vincent with 6-6 in terms of the victories in 7 shots. Aaron Rodgers has been really good down there in the low red zone throughout camp. So to see that really convincing victory versus a good Tampa Bay defense was good to see. And then the defense lost 7 shots to Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and that Buccaneers offense, but it was close, 4-3. So very competitive there. A really good offense going up against a really good defense. Obviously, you'd like to get both dubs there, but overall, the overall score there, it's 9-5. Steelers win. So I'm going to count that as a victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then when it came to the 2-minute drill periods at the end of practice, the Steelers' first team offense went 4 and out. So that's been a period where Aaron Rodgers and the first team offense have had a little bit of struggles to get going. They've only had 1 successful 2-minute drill, and I believe it's 4 or 5 tries at this point in camp. So you want to see that get better as this season goes on. It might be a little bit of a hint that, if the Steelers are down late in the game in some of these early games while Aaron Rodgers and his receivers continue to build their chemistry together, you probably don't want to be down, with a 2-minute drill in these early games if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the defense did give up a touchdown to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers offense. Apparently Mike Evans beat Jalen Ramsey for a touchdown in the 2-minute drill. But I mean, Mike Evans is Mike Evans. He's awesome. And, no matter how good of a corner you are, I don't care if you're Jalen Ramsey or Sauce Gardner or Pat Surtain, all right? Guys like Mike Evans are going to get their wins, right? So I'm not too worried about that whatsoever, but that 2-minute drill period definitely won by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then another kind of main takeaway that was kind of taken away from the people that were on the ground for the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday was that the run game continued to struggle against Tampa Bay, and specific some of the run blitzes that they were running against the Steelers. I think it was Zach Frazier said after practice that those blitz looks were kind of messing with the run blocking scheme for the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday, and they just didn't really get a whole lot going. And that's been kind of a theme in camp, is that the run game, whether it's against the Steelers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, both good defenses, by the way, both really good run defenses. And they got one of the best run defending nose tackles in the league in Vita Vea, so they're not an easy team to run the football against, not in the least, and neither are the Steelers for that matter. But to this point, the rushing offense has been getting off to a slow start, and we even saw that in the preseason game last week. Even though I think they only ran it 2 or 3 times with the starting offensive line out there, I do think that is an area that you're going to see that needs to be, getting some growth going here, because this run game is going to be a very crucial part of the Steelers' success on offense this year. It's been a big reason why the Steelers have not been able to kind of ascend to that next level as a football team, is because the offensive line and the run game just haven't stepped up to elevate the ceiling of the team as a whole. And if you can't run the football here in Pittsburgh, I don't know if you can truly rely on Aaron Rodgers to carry an offense if you don't have a good run game to support him. So it's going to be very important for the run game to get going by the start of the season, and especially once we get down the stretch when the Steelers need to be playing their best football. And I'll also throw this out there, guys. I think heading into the season, I think we have to get comfortable with the idea that Caleb Johnson might not have that big of a role to start the season. All right, he's not very good in pass protection. He's dropping a lot of passes as a receiver. He doesn't bring a whole lot to either portion of his game right there. Like where his value is, it's going to be on early downs, early on in his career, while he develops kind of the pass protection and the ability to catch the football. And right now, Jaylen Warren is clearly the number 1 running back. So right now, I would say to start the season, Caleb might not even have that much of a role, maybe just a few carries a game, if that. And then Jaylen Warren is going to be this team's pretty much legit number 1 running back, with Kenny Gainwell coming in relief as a third down back to give Jaylen some rest when he needs it. So, I think as the season goes on, Caleb's role could continue to rise, especially if he continues his growth and development and maturity within his role in the offense. But I think, Jaylen Warren is more than capable as a number 1 running back. I think he's going to prove that this year. He's one of the best guys in the league at making guys miss. He's super efficient. He's got great vision. His jump cut ability is awesome. And then, unlike Caleb Johnson, he does provide value as a receiver and as a pass protector. So I do think Jaylen Warren is going to be your number 1 running back heading into the year, and I think he's going to have a good season, playing behind this Steelers offensive line. Speaking of this offensive line, the reports out of joint practice yesterday was that the pass protection held up. So that is continuing to be good news for this Steelers unit that really needs to be good this year, because Aaron Rodgers, even though he does still have good pocket presence, and he can feel that rush and step up and step to the side and buy himself that extra second, he doesn't have a whole lot of true mobility left. So you got to have a good pass protecting offensive line here in Pittsburgh this year. And it seems like, Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, these young players that really need to come together and gel are doing just that as pass protectors. And we saw that last week versus the first team Jaguars defensive line, and Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. I thought Troy Fautano did an excellent job on Walker last week, and I thought Broderick Jones wasn't perfect, but he certainly looked better than his previous seasons and in his previous preseason debuts versus Josh Hines-Allen, a legit number one edge rusher. So, all the reports surrounding Broderick and Fautano and all these different guys have been all positive over the last 2 weeks or so, which is certainly heading in the right direction, because that unit, as I've said throughout this offseason, guys, that's going to be the unit that decides how good this offense and how good this team can be this year. So hopefully they're getting ready for a big-time breakout year along the offensive line. Also, even though Mike Evans did get his wins in, Emeka Egbuka did get his wins in, reports on the ground there is that the secondary for the Steelers looked pretty darn good. They held their own, and they look like the real deal. And this is what we've been saying all throughout Steelers camp, is that this secondary can go man-to-man against anybody, and the reports yesterday said that the Steelers are actually playing a lot of zone, so it seems like Mike Tomlin maybe was saving some of his tricks for later in this practice and playing a lot of zone when this Steelers team, frankly, is expected to play a lot of man this season. So definitely going to be interesting to see how this secondary does. It really doesn't seem like we're going to see a whole lot of these guys in the preseason. Pretty much everybody on the starting secondary is not going to be playing on Saturday night, maybe besides Juan Thornhill and maybe a little bit of Deshaun Elliott. But, I definitely don't have any worries about the secondary heading into the year. And then a couple guys that stood out, according to the reports on the ground yesterday, and players were, saying had good practices. Scotty Miller, the wide receiver, continued his strong camp. There's a lot of Steelers reporters saying it's going to be tough to keep him off the 53-man roster. And I can see why. I can see him as a really good backup to Calvin Austin III. They're very similar type of receivers. Scotty's may come down with some really nice catches all throughout camp. So, as that guy, that true backup wide receiver that can also give you a little bit on special teams is something that, would provide value to this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So I do think Scotty has a decent chance of making this team, but if they do bring in an Amari Cooper, if they do bring in an Adam Thielen, if they do bring in a Gabe Davis, that will make, his chances of making the team a little bit less, but it certainly seems like the Steelers like him, and certainly seems like he's having a great camp. And then Brandon Echols had another really good practice, apparently. This time in the slot. Joey Porter Jr. was limited in yesterday's practice, did not participate in the team periods, so Jalen Ramsey was playing on the outside. And previously in camp in Latrobe, when they did that, Echols would play in the slot sometimes, but Beanie Bishop Jr. would also slot in there as the first-team slot corner when Ramsey would go outside. But this time, Brandon Echols had spent the entire practice as the first-team slot corner, and that is good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's good news for Brandon Echols and his role on the Steelers team, and it's probably bad news for Beanie Bishop Jr., for being completely honest with you. But Echols' versatility is one of the biggest strengths that he has, bringing to this Steelers secondary, where if one of these guys, God forbid, goes down with an injury, you can trust a guy like Brandon Echols to come in and play pretty darn well, whether it's on the outside, whether it's on the inside. He's played very well at both spots throughout this camp, and obviously I think that means probably not the best things for Beanie Bishop Jr. Now, I still think Beanie has a pretty decent chance of making the final team because he has experience playing in this defense. He made some plays for this defense last year when he was in the game, and then Dante Kent needs to get healthy. I do think Beanie has probably left the door open for Dante Kent if he can get healthy and if he can show out at the end of this preseason. There's certainly a chance that Beanie could be put on practice squad or released, and Dante makes the team instead. But, that's certainly a competition that I'm going to be keeping my eye out for. But, it definitely seems like at this point, if somebody goes down with an injury, Brandon Echols, whether it's on the outside or on the inside, he's going to be the next line of defense at the cornerback position. So, we'll see what ends up happening. I'll be interested to see how Beanie Bishop Jr. does in the preseason game tomorrow night against the Buccaneers. Because, in my opinion, guys, he didn't play great in the Jacksonville game. He was out of position a lot of times. He missed a few tackles. He got beaten man coverage a couple of times. Got bailed out by some bad throws from Nick Mullins. So I'm looking for Beanie to have a bounce-back week because it seems like his status in that cornerback pecking order kind of took a dip heading into this week. So he's going to have a bounce-back week for sure. But that's about all I got for you guys today, man. Buccaneers won the practice, but honestly, if I would have had to predict which team was going to be more prepared, more cohesive together and ready to play, I would have said the Buccaneers, just because Todd Bowles is a good head coach. They have a lot of cohesion on that roster, a lot of guys that have played together for a long time and have that established chemistry, so they don't have quite as much to figure out as the Steelers do. Even though the Steelers were hosting and it was at Acrisure Stadium, I think at this stage it's more than fine to have a team like the Buccaneers be more prepared, more kind of rock steady. They're probably more ready for the season than the Steelers are right now. But I think give the Steelers a couple more weeks here. I think that Aaron Rodgers and this Steelers defense and the weapons that Rodgers has to throw to in the run game, I think all of that is going to start to come together fully here over the next 2 or 3 weeks as we prepare for the season opener versus the New York Jets. So that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Tomorrow we're going to be having more preseason coverage on our live watch party. I'll have my preview come out tomorrow morning as well, so you're not going to want to miss that video. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.